space station.
Hey guys, welcome back to the show. Just a reminder, tickets are still available for our conference coming up this May 13th through 16th in Grafton, Illinois, Rebels of Disclosure. We have an incredible lineup this year, including Derek and Daniel, who are joining us today, and we're going to get into that in a little bit, but I just want to remind you that you can still grab a ticket. It's not too late. rebelsofdisclosure.com. There's 4-day passes, 1-day passes, and if you can't make it in person, you can get a live stream virtual pass. And we highly encourage that. We have a cool feature where you can actually ask questions to the presenter through the Telegram group. If you aren't there in person, you can participate virtually. So that's a kind of a cool feature. So, I mean, it's literally like what, less a month away, and we're
basically exactly a month away at this point. Yeah.
Right. Yeah, we're super excited about it, and we're super excited to have these guys there with us, and they are going to be sharing information from their grandfather's book, Life with a Cosmos Clearance, and some new developments and some discoveries they're making as far as his testimony goes. But today, we're going to be getting into the Wingmakers. And if you don't know who the Wingmakers are, that's what this whole episode is about. We're going to go on a deep dive and just, cover it from all angles and have a lot of fun talking about this. It is one of the most fascinating subjects, in my personal opinion. And I've done a few deep dives myself, and every time you take away something new. So we're excited to bring all this information to you guys, and welcome to the show, guys.
Thank you.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah,
great to have you on.
So just for our audience who doesn't know, we've had you on the show before. It's been a while, but you guys are the host of Shred the Veil, which is a podcast, I guess, for lack of a better term. And maybe you could tell our audience about what that is and what you guys do and kind of what your whole mission is before we get into this.
Yeah, we originally started on Infinite TV, and we still have our content there. But since probably about a year now, we moved a lot of stuff to YouTube, and now we primarily work out of YouTube. And our show is called Shred the Veil, and we are really all about disclosure. And we're kind of following our grandfather's legacy. He was one of Dr. Greer's 21 witnesses in the original Disclosure Project in 2001. His background was in the Air Force and the National Reconnaissance Office, and he came forward with testimonies about his encounters with UFOs and aliens. And he had a Cosmos Clearance. It's the title of his book, which is like 38 levels above top secret. And he was privy to a lot of information about extraterrestrials, aliens, UFO crashes, particleization, time travel kind of aspects. And so we, over the last 20 years, been trying to just validate a lot of the information that he presented, because he passed shortly after he put his book out there. So we never really got a chance to talk to him about in more detail about those topics. So it's always been very on the front of our minds, trying to understand what the real truth is and to corroborate some things. And so that's kind of like what we're doing. And we started our show to share the information with everybody.
Right. And so the Wingmakers is an aspect of what he talked about in the book. Am I correct about that?
Yeah. The last chapter was just on the Wingmakers. Yeah.
Right. So that's really interesting, because just to have somebody in your family who claims to have a connection with the Wingmakers, which is one of the craziest, conspiracies out there, which I don't think it's a conspiracy. I really do feel in my heart that it's legitimate. And the ACIO, which is the Advanced Contact Intelligence Organization, who is a department of the NSA, and their involvement with the Ancient Arrow site, which is the site where the quote time capsule was found. As soon as I said that, my ears started ringing.
There you go.
But yeah, so it's a very, and that was near Chaco Canyon, if I'm understanding that correctly. And what I find interesting about it is on the Anderson Institute website, they have a photograph of the NSA investigation site in the canyon. So I'm like, well, if you wanted to go look for it, you can just take that photograph and kind of go see if you can, compare it, because they don't give any coordinates. But you guys have done extensive research on this. So Whichever one of you guys wants to take the wheel and just kind of, give us the background of, what you've discovered as far as who the Wingmakers are and what this is all about.
Just want to regarding the last chapter of our grandfather's book, he talks about the ACIO and the Wingmakers, and he was the only member of the Disclosure Project that actually talked about the ACIO at all. He brought it up in his testimony as a real organization that was out there, and this was back in 2001. And we've since learned that he may have had some involvement directly with the ACIO. He didn't disclose that information at the time, but we've had more than one source tell us that. So kind of makes sense of why he wanted to include this in his book and thought it was important to save as the last chapter. I just want to preface it with that. And then I think, Derek, you probably are best at explaining the ancient arrow site. It was a good place to start.
Okay, I'll do my best. I'll try. It's been a little while, but yeah, we do want to emphasize that our grandfather did say, he did mention ACIO. He said, he was with the NRO, which was secretive up until 1997. And then he said, if you pay your dues and you follow the rules, there's another organization called the ACIO that you or your government can benefit from that organization's information. So, I mean, that's crazy. Now that all the people talk about ACIO so much in the last 20 some years, he was very tenured, very old, in his 70s something. And I mean, he was already kind of on his way out, and he was just saying, by the way, this is important information. So it's the last chapter of his book. And so I think that's very relevant also. So to get into the topic, like you said, it was a site found in Chaco Canyon. Now, the thing that people need to realize is when they go to the site, the website, I believe it's wingmakers.us, you can go to wingmakers.com, and that gives you a whole plethora of information behind it too. But the original site's wingmakers.com or .us, sorry. And it's changed over the years since it first came out. And I think there was reasons behind that. And I think the creator or the original creator, whether they were involved later on or whether it was taken over by somebody else, this person's name was James Mahu, who said he created all this information. And he has a lot of information now that you can see to back up the original story. But the story's changed slightly. And so there's a whole book, an 8-chapter book on the original site that goes over how this time capsule was found in Chaco Canyon, tied to the Anasazi Indians that were around in like 700, 880, but kind of just vanished all of a sudden. So what was found there, artifacts or hieroglyphs, things like that, were similar to what the culture back then looked like. So it's almost like some kind of remnants of that, but very, 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 very advanced technology when they got to the actual site, this supposed time capsule. So when they, go ahead. Yeah,
I'm just going to say when they first, just to clarify on the website thing, the wingmakers.com is the updated version that has all the additional information that he's added over the years and some of the modified stuff. But the wingmakers.us is the one that is as there was originally in 1998 when it was first came up and was on there. So if you want to look into that, that's the one where that's the most where we got a lot of the information that we're talking about with specifics to the site, the Ancient Arrow site. But when they discovered the site, it was the story goes it was like some hikers that found one of the first artifacts, and it turned into be some kind of decoded. They were able to decode some kind of homing device or tracking device to get to the Chaco Canyon, the actual ancient entrance.
Right.
They took over from there and used it to decode it and figure out where it was.
Yeah, it went from one agency to the next, whether it was FBI or whoever, CIA to NSA, and then eventually, ACIO, anything that's of alien origin or could be ET origin, they eventually take that over and start to look into it. And so they were even hiding stuff from the NSA and more of those that officially found the site in the first place. Also, the dates are different. Like, was this happened back in the 70s or early 80s, or was it more in the 90s? That story kind of changed over time.
Well, they say it's originally the first discovery was made in 1973, and then
Mhm.
it wasn't until 1994, whenever there was the earthquake that caused a landslide, that opened up the cave entrance, right? That's
Yeah.
like those are the two dates that I know of.
Right. Okay. So yeah, it's good to clarify that too, because it seemed like it wasn't fully discovered till later, till like the 90s. And
Right.
that's the gist of the story and why that information came out in the late 90s when it did. And so the person that came out with this information was Dr. Neruda, Jameson Neruda, but originally in the original book and everything, his name was Dr. Anderson. And we have the document our grandfather pulled off from the original site that is basically Dr. Anderson going through his story, or at least a memo within the Labyrinth group itself. And we'll get into what that is, the Labyrinth group, but just the background again. Eventually, these agencies came in, discovered this by by mid 90s or whatever it was. They actually found this the homing device. It was an artifact, but they later found it was a homing device, a homing beacon at the end of the day. And there was apparently this remote viewer, and this goes way into remote viewing and like the fact that our agencies use this, like that's very well known. The technology is very well used throughout all since, whatever, since the who knows how long, since our grandfather started this in the 50s, it was part of it too. I think he knew of that. And so this really good remote viewer RV person was able to kind of tap into that. And the homing beacon was very much it's a security device itself, meaning it will not let anybody access it or penetrate it unless they have the right signature, a frequency, whatever you want to call it. But they have to somehow have a relationship and somehow almost like a fingerprint to say, okay, we'll allow you to access this information. And from what the story is, not even some of the others in the ACIO could tap into this. So they had to use this certain person to gain access and figure out what is going on. And they would only communicate to that person. This Dr. Neruda also felt like he was getting personal information through him. And that later is why he ended up defecting and wanting this information out, because he felt like being in the ACIO and the Labyrinth group, all they were going to do is pretty much lock all this information away, never get it out to the masses. So anyway, this is a time capsule they found. They went into this chamber. It was very pristine. Like it looked like there was no dirt and dust when they started going deeper into this cavern. And so it was like, this had to be of advanced origin. Like how do you build out and tunnel out a structure like that and leave no dust, no traces of heat,
no debris, nothing. Like
Yeah.
It had to be hauled miles away because there was nowhere even around the area itself. They couldn't
Right.
find any of where it had been excavated.
Right. And so the layout of this site is basically like, it was just like a small little chamber. They were going down into this like mountain, like opening, outcropping, whatever it was. But they were going pretty far down to get to this antechamber. There's maybe a couple antechambers before they got this huge opening. It opened up to this pathway that kind of did a spiral, and there was chambers, one after the other, up to 23. So 23 chambers spiraling up to the very top. And then, so the story goes, I think there was maybe one other chamber or one other access point that went straight down to like this 24th chamber. So it might have been tied to chromosomes, human chromosomes is what speculation is, right?
Yeah, like the missing chromosome. And also that spiral, I think, this is apparently a time traveling group, right? And I think the spiral is indicative of that. And we see that spiral petroglyph everywhere in the Southwest. I definitely think that represents maybe time travel as well. I think it has something to do with time, and it's the Fibonacci sequence, and who knows, like everything,
Definitely. I think that all ties into that for sure. And then within each chamber, to be more specific of what this website shows you, is like each chamber has artwork, these really vivid, colorful paintings that are they're kind of like it made in a native way, but also very futuristic, very like just kind of out of this world in a way. you have to kind of see it and gauge it for yourself, like what that is. So there's artwork, paintings in each chamber, as well as an artifact. Now, yeah, go ahead.
Can I try to share my screen real quick? I have some images that might.
Yeah.
Go for it.
Let me give you permission here. Okay, you should be up.
Just to note, there's not many artifacts that were actually released on the website. All the paintings were, but not so many the artifacts. And we can explain why that might be the case as we talk to Peter the Insider on that.
Well, obviously, some of it's probably just simply classified.
Right.
Okay, so I haven't seen this diagram actually.
So this is kind of like a top-down view of what, it shows you the entrance and how you get through the tunnels to the spiral part of it, where it starts kind of on the outside and it kind of spirals inward as it goes up. And you can see on either side, as you go through the spiral tunnel, there's chamber 1, 2, 3, 4, and it keeps going up to the 23rd chamber up at the top. And I'll just some of the chamber artwork I can just pull up a little bit here.
Right, which that to me indicates a womb or symbolizes a womb.
Or a portal.
A portal, which a womb is a portal. Yeah.
We actually went through, there's all 23 pictures. We had a two-part series with Jessica and Peter, the insider from the ACIO, talking about, the meaning behind each of these. And
we go into a lot of detail, or he tries to explain the best he can what each painting is. So please look at that.
A lot of I guess the overall theme from that was a lot of these are in a way like warnings to humanity, with respect to, being more aligned with our higher self or first source and less distracted by the matrix around us. And, otherwise there are consequences if we don't, figure that out and start going down that path. So that was a lot of the theme,
Look at what we're unpacking. These pictures are worth 1,000 words. Like the one you have on the screen, that central looks like magma or lava, like shooting out of the earth. It almost looks like maybe like that one being looks like it might have a tail. Like, I don't know, these people coming up from the underworld to the surface. We have portals, the spirals, the triangles. I mean, the
portal stuff. Yeah.
There's a lot going on here. Right.
Like this could represent different realms, dimensions.
Right. So that's just a taste. I mean, so if you go to that original website, that wingmakers.us, you can look at all the different chambers, and it has these original artworks. Like Derek said, the other website, they've evolved a little bit. There's been some changes, some modifications, but these are the original ones.
Right. So let's talk about Dr. Anderson and what happened. Like he defected and found a journalist to share this information with, a quote random journalist, which I don't know how random it actually was, but it's because I think he was the top scientist who was able to decipher the optical disc, which was the big artifact that seemed to have like alien information on it, or maybe just historical information of this civilization, right?
Right.
And
on the disc in chamber 23, and it took them like 6 to 8 months to decode it. And they said it was, this guy was like the top linguist around. He knew a lot of ancient languages as well. And it had like Sumerian style text on there, but it was all different. That was stuff they'd never seen before.
Right. So, apparently what he did was, so they actually used the paintings to decipher, to figure out how to unlock the optical disc. So each painting like held a word in a Sumerian text. And so he decided to speak all 23 words in sequence from each chamber in the Sumerian language. And that's what unlocked the disc. From what I've read, I don't know if that's actually what happened, but.
That's interesting. Yeah, I didn't hear that part, but yeah, that might make sense too. But yeah, so this is one thing to note when you want to defect from an agency, as technologically advanced as this. One thing to note, okay, we mentioned the Labyrinth group briefly. So Neruda, obviously he had access, I think, up to the level 12. Once you get to level 12 within the ACIO, you have access to the Labyrinth group. And what the Labyrinth group means is that you are then able to know the technology, the pure state technology of these other beings, extraterrestrial beings or whatever, advanced beings, not from this planet, obviously. And so there was a couple races that they were in touch with, mainly what they call the Cortium, and I believe that's what they say is the Anunnaki, one more or less. And then there's a whole subject about that. But the point is that you have access to that technology at those levels from 12, and then up to the highest is 15. But 15 is only accessed by one individual who goes by 15, who is brought into that program because he seemed to have the ability to almost communicate the best with these other races, other beings that they were talking with. I think the Greys were another part that they were also talking to, whatever Zetas, but they didn't really trust them as much as they might have with the others. So anyway, there's a technology transfer program taking place, or TTP they call it, with the groups at those higher levels. So Dr. Nerida, one thing to mention, what I was trying to get at is that he had a hesitancy about breaking away because, well, first of all, at those levels, they enhance your intelligence. Like they have the ability to do that, right? So that's one great benefit of being involved at that higher level, that they can actually go ahead and enhance your intelligence. But the other thing is they could, if you try to defect, they can completely wipe your mind of being part of that program. And I think we have other whistleblowers that have come out that probably have gone through that. Right. Bob Czar is probably one of those you can mention as somebody that he probably was only seen so much and only allowed to retain so much information, and the rest of it was just like they don't remember their day-to-day going to work. It's like they completely get mind wiped. For what they were actually doing, right?
Yeah, Bob Czar, he was a very controlled, intentionally controlled disclosure whistleblower. They wanted him to blow the whistle, but only in a very limited way, and they made sure of that. Absolutely.
Yeah. So that's what he was. Yeah, he was worried that, or he was almost confident that if he defected, they were going to blank slate him and he wouldn't remember anything. So that's why he found the journalist right away and shared the information with her. I believe it was a female.
Yeah.
And, and she created the website and shared what she could, but she left pertinent details off the website, and her name. I don't even know if anybody actually still to this day knows who she was, or is.
She was Anne. Originally, she was Anne, and then she changed to Sarah. So, of course, they changed the name.
But the one thing that I did remember reading was that he warned her, Dr. Anderson warned her, not go into the NSA, to don't pursue an investigation. He said because, for one, they'll probably give her disinfo and send her on a wild goose chase. But two, he explained to her about the remote viewers. He explained to her the importance of the remote viewing program to them and how they were using it, and they could track her anywhere she was. So he kind of suggested that she just kind of leave that part alone.
Yeah, that makes sense. So yeah, there was a lot of sessions, obviously, of them talking and her recording the whole conversation. So there were originally 4 interviews on the website, and then they released the 5th interview later on. So that also goes to show how much of the 5th interview is the original information, or maybe could have been altered at some point. I don't know, but it's just weird that they would have these little changes, and some are more significant than others. But I recently just went back and looked, and they show you pretty good comparison. I guess from the interview, paragraph by paragraph, what the first one said compared to the later version. So some of those main changes are like the information about the central race, which maybe wasn't quite mentioned as heavily in the beginning, in the original, and the fact that these time capsules, whether they later were like, well, maybe they aren't time capsules, we're not sure, but they're defensive security measures, and that was later put out. While the original, according to this website post, was more related to just, I guess, gaining knowledge from within, going within and trying to enhance your spiritual abilities and help awaken the planet, more or less. And that's what those sites are for. And maybe as a defensive mechanism, that kind of is ultimately the goal. It was just kind of the narrative switched on that aspect.
I think that's that you just said the key word, narrative. it feels like they were trying to control the narrative at some point. Like we need to, we don't want people to start, looking at this stuff too deeply. So let's, tell them this, whatever.
Give them a little, throw them a little bone to appease the public.
Right.
Right. Rather than they continue searching, it's like, oh yeah, here's the truth. You just stop there. They do that all the time. They do that stuff all the time. Right.
Right.
Yeah, misinformation, anything that's been put out before, they can alter it here and there, and then you're like, well, what do I really believe? What is really the truth? And it just leaves it out up to the up in the air, basically. But like even like the distances light years away from these other beings and races, like they went from like 15 light years, 15,000 light years to 15 million or whatever it was. So little things like that, little changes. The one other thing I want to mention, we can go in so many different directions, but the other thing I mentioned is like this group that's coming eventually to come and harm us is the Animus, is like the antagonist in this whole story. They call it the Animus, and more or less it's a synthetic race that's not, more than likely not even from this universe, but it's come to this universe. It's basically AI, and that's kind of like the final battle, or what we have to come into terms with or deal with in these kind of end times that we're in right now. A lot of people talk about that. Yeah.
It's kind of what's happening right now. I mean,
really?
yeah, honestly, seriously, it is.
Right.
The Neuralink and all that stuff. I mean, it looks, I was just listening to something on Twitter Spaces the other day talking about how the AI is taking over the technology itself. So if you have a Wi-Fi router in your home, the AI is so intelligent at this point, it can start doing things with that Wi-Fi router on its own that it was never even designed to do. And it's like this crazy like takeover, and it's extremely sentient, right? Whatever, if that's true or not, I don't know. But it's like you can see the threat, right?
Yeah, definitely. And so Carrie Cassidy goes into a lot of that. She's big on the AI, and I would recommend her if you haven't heard her. There's so many like different little narratives and avenues you can go down of people and research that have been out. And like this whole Anunnaki story, there's a lot of there's factions among the whole story in itself. If you go back to the mythology or the whatever scriptures and writings that have been around since the Sumerians, documented all that, it's the war against the huge family, basically. And Anu is supposedly the creator god, basically. And in this whole narrative within the Wingmakers information in the site, at least now, it talks about Anu as being maybe the creator of this universe or this matrix, more or less. So he's acting as God, and there's many layers of deception within our what we call reality, which is more or less an illusion. And a lot of people are finding out that that aspect. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, I was gonna say that's definitely a path that we can explore in this conversation. I would like to actually talk about the Anunnaki part of it and the systems that they have in place, the suppression system. But I don't know if we're ready for that yet, or if we want to finish talking about the kind of the
right. Yeah. Yeah, there's a few more things I want to bring up. First of all, this is supposed to be, the Wingmakers are supposed to be a group 750 years from our future, but the stuff in the cave, the time capsule, right, is all dated back to the 8th century AD, except for the optical disc, which didn't fit in to any time period because it was just so advanced. But what I want to bring up is many of you guys have listened to our interview with Katie Weiss. She channels a group called the Chorus, and they're like outside of this universe, right? And it's just like this extremely like zoomed out perspective on life itself, existence, And I showed her the Wingmaker site, and she was just kind of compelled to start looking through it. And what she found interesting, what she was drawn to, was the poems on the site. And she read them all, and she was flipping out because the poems she had written 2 books, channeled information from this group called the Chorus, right? Well, when she was reading the poems, it was the same information that she channeled from this group. and even some of the same verbiage, like same phrases and stuff. And she was like, whoa, this is the craziest connection. And she just kept reading it and she was like, oh my God, oh my God. Like it was just this profound thing. This isn't just, there's so much encoded within those poems and that artwork about our existence. I don't think people quite understand that. So there's a lot to unpack outside of the interviews. And I think the reason the artwork and those poems were put out there is for people like her to read it and read between the lines, because what she was what she was translating or deciphering from it was something completely different than what I got out of it the first time I read it. So
Right.
something interesting to note.
Yeah.
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 So each chamber had poems, the artifacts. There was artifacts, there were paintings, there were poems, and supposedly even somehow like music of some kind. I don't know how that
Yeah. Yeah.
really evolved, but yeah, every chamber had a different one. So it's I'm sure I've never really looked that deeply into the poems. I'd be curious now to check it out though.
Yeah.
I remember looking at them like a long time ago, and I don't even know if they're the same as they used to be. But I was intrigued, and I was like, these are definitely like ways to trigger something or activate people if they're not. There's many avenues, and you look at the overall view of this website of the websites. Like, if you're into the more practical ways, there's practical ways of using teachings or whatever, spiritual enlightenment, things like that. There's just more of just the poems and more, like, I guess, artsy or like or esoteric ways of looking at things. So it's whatever draws your attention to it. There's no right way of looking at this material.
Right.
So it just depends on the person and what they're drawn to, really.
Right.
And there's Kerry Cassidy did an interview with James Mahu, who is the web owner of the website. It was through email. She wasn't able to talk to him live or anything. But he said that the original website came out and it was meant to activate people. What was the content of that website was there to activate people. And he has it now. It's been evolved so many times, all the different philosophy and different things that he's added to it. Like there's this lyricist website. There's all these other different aspects that are out there. It's very in depth. That kind of information has been put there to for people who were activated by the initial website to further develop their understanding of it and to evolve and kind of use that as their path, their guide to get through the material and kind of really embrace everything that they had to say. So that's how he explained the evolution of it.
Doesn't Carrie think that Dr. Anderson or whoever, like, doesn't she think she knows who that is?
So she claims that James Mahu, this curator of the website, who he never said this, but she thinks that he is Dr. Neruda. He's the the one who defected from the ACIO.
Okay, interesting. So you mentioned this 15 character earlier, Derek. Can you expand on that a little more? I'm curious.
Sure. I'll do my best. So he was there's a lot of interesting things about who he might be, and I'll get into that too. But apparently he joined like in the late 50s or like 58, something like that. But
he joined what?
The ACIO.
Okay.
Sorry. So he was put into the ACIO around that time. Just a side note on this, like our grandfather, obviously he started his career and like actually got in the military in 47, but officially in the Air Force and radar and all that in 49. And according to his book, was part of Project Blue Book and all these alien encounters or crash retrievals type stuff. A lot of what like Chris Clifford Stone was talking about, he might have been involved early on. But he mentions he met 15 at some point, I think all the way into the 80s. Like he was and our grandfather, he said he met him at NASA, and this guy 15 just kind of had like long hair, didn't have any like official like clothing, like the scientific or professional clothing, is just like in sandals and like hanging out. But his mind was so brilliant, they would use him. Our grandfather said they used him to help get Apollo 13 back to Earth, like those types of things where they needed a brilliant mind to do that. So he was working, obviously in that area. And just on a side note, our grandmother was working at NASA and our mom was working at NASA during the Apollo landing in 69, even though she was so young. But I think our grandfather was a Mason. Another reason why he's probably tied into this, me and my brother aren't Masons, but he brought our mom into that So I think that was also why they were tied to NASA. That's just a side note, whatever. But he said he met 15. So 15 was involved from that early on through up into the 90s. And so, like I said, he more or less had some connection with these beings. He was a high intellect already. He didn't need to have that enhanced intelligence that they were eventually given, but he kind of had it's kind of like the midway point to gain this access and gain the trust of these beings. So
Right.
he advanced very quickly. Now there's somebody called A.R. Borden, and some people believe that he might actually be 15, or he was 15, and I think he died in 2013 from what the research looks like. If you want to go on that whole trail of information, look up Michael Lee Hill. He has a lot of information.
Who? Say that name again.
Michael Lee Hill.
Okay.
And he's actually a musician, and he started to work with the 432 hertz frequency, and that's his whole deal. And he said he's been getting information from the Anunnaki. He didn't even know what Anunnaki was. He didn't believe in any of this stuff, but he was getting these messages or information, and eventually proved that, okay, this is something to it. How he's tied to it. Certain people claim that they are part Anunnaki themselves. Maybe 15 is or was, and that's also why he was chosen at that position at the higher level. So just means to know that. Yeah.
You mentioned when we were texting something about dragonflies and tied to 15. Can you explain that?
Well, why don't you explain what your ties to that? Because all I can say is that I was just looking up random clips about, okay, who was this 15 and how was he tied to A.R. Borden? And it was just a really weird, probably done 10 years ago, of a video. And I thought it'd be a lot more insightful, but it just showed pictures, the one picture of 15 that appeared in the 70s, maybe in Hawaii on a retreat. And then A.R. Borden tied to that. But then it was just like some music and all these pictures of dragonflies. And I was like, what does the dragonflies have to do with any of that?
So if you notice the thumbnail, I put the dragonfly craft, I forgot what they call it, from the movie Dune. I put it on the thumbnail. And the reason I did that is because before I knew about the Wingmakers and before I saw Dune, I had this crazy dream recall experience, whatever you want to call it, where I was part of this time travel group who called ourselves the Wingmakers, and we were flying around in one of those dragonfly craft, and we were on another planet. Well, what I perceived as another planet, and it seemed to be like a water planet. And there was like, if you've seen Star Wars Episode 2, the Clone Wars, when they go to the water planet and they have like the bases in the middle of the ocean, that's kind of what it was. And we were flying to one of those bases. Anyway, I knew very clearly that for some reason we were called the Wingmakers and this craft, and I have this whole memory, and we were like, whatever, it's this whole thing. I don't have time to tell it all now. But then I saw Dr. Sala do an interview about the Wingmakers, and I'm like, wait, what is the Wingmakers are actually a thing? And then I started going down that rabbit hole. I was blown away. Then I saw the movie Dune, and I saw that dragonfly craft. I'm like, wait a second, what is going on here? And then you look up that guy, and there's a dragonfly connection. I don't know. I really do think that that craft is disclosure of real technology. And the book we covered in our Inner Earth webinar, the Lost City of Manoa, when the guy actually goes through the portal into this Atlantean outpost, he sees craft that mimic our insects and dragonflies and grasshoppers. Like all of their technology mimicked Mother Nature, because it's already perfectly designed and aerodynamic and everything. So I do think that those types of craft are what we might expect to see in the future. Anyway.
Yeah. I think it's amazing. It was such a coincidence.
Right. So,
but yeah, no, I guess, I mean, the 15's an enigma in itself, more or less. And so I don't know where else to go with him other than he kind of is the head of this labyrinth group of the ACIO. But there are these tiers. There's another image, I wish I had it, that shows the unofficial, unacknowledged access programs. It's a really good image that shows the NSA, well, first of all, whatever other intelligence agencies, but the NSA and the government, and then also above level 1 or into level 1 access clearances, you have the unacknowledged special access programs, you have the military industrial complex, You have, special research institutes or labs, basically. And then you go to the second level. There's like a barrier between that and to the second level, which is the ACIO, and, as hard as it is for us to believe our grandfather was even involved at that level up to, whatever levels. But then within the third level, or the other level, the other barrier before you get to the third level is the 11th group. So that's as high as it gets as far as, and what I said by pure state, meaning that they have all of the pure state technology, that the original technology as these beings were communicating with them. But all of that has been trickled down into the military industrial complex, to these private sectors, to get out to the human population, to us, but just so diluted and so much, like hundreds of years probably at this point, like behind where they are now with the original technology. So just note that, like The Day After Roswell by Philip Corso is a great book that explains all of that. And our grandfather references that also.
So you mentioned Peter the Insider earlier, and him giving you an explanation as to why all the artifacts weren't shown on the website. Can you explain who Peter the Insider is and what his affiliation is with the ACIO and what your experience was with him?
Yeah, Dan, go ahead.
Okay, so Peter is, as Derek mentioned, once you're in the level 12 classification of the ACIO, that you have that clearance and can have access to the Labyrinth group, which is a technology transfer group with us and the ETs. And so he has that level, and he is very much part of the secret space program, and kind of he still goes on missions and things like that. And he has access to these pretty in-depth databases of anything you can think of that with different timelines involved, and other dimensional type of stuff that he's involved with. As far as anyone that we are aware of that's active in the ACIO, he's the highest ranking person that we are aware of. And so, our experience with him started with, getting into this wing. That's how we kind of connected with him and Jessica, who's at the 6th level. And we talked about having them on and going into depths about the Wingmakers material. And so he acknowledged that, the ACIO was definitely a part of it. He validated a lot of the story that their involvement with the Ancient Arrows site and collecting the artifacts. He didn't go into a lot of detail about the artifacts. Do you remember what he said about the artifacts?
Yeah. I want to tie this in with the artifacts. Like, the only artifact that was shown was this crystal, like a quartz crystal. It's just kind of like, one was more like cut to certain angles and whatnot, and the other one was just kind of just random crystals. But there's a tie to that, because we did a whole episode about crystal technology with Dan Willis from the Disclosure Project, who met a grandfather, and he was working with Marcel Vogel, like the head of IBM at one point, and Marcel Vogel went deep into this crystal technology and cutting it to a certain angle. It's called the vocal cut, but that allows you to enhance like the natural frequency almost of, I don't want to know how you want to call it, but like of the universe, but the frequency that we can give off if we interact with these crystals and we put our intention behind it, we can somehow activate or enhance our own psychic abilities, or abilities that all humans have, like when you meditate, basically. So you get enough people meditating together, how that can affect, the earth resonance frequency, the Schumann resonance and all that. And that's been measurable and that's been seen. David Wilcock talks about it. Dan Winter, other people have talked about it. So this is true stuff. And so Dan Willis has been doing this with Elena Danan, actually, in many ways, in her contacts that she apparently has. But just to mention all that, Peter the Insider said, some of this technology, we don't really even know what it is or how to use it. And one of those reasons that it wasn't shown is because just for that reason, we don't want to just, reveal something that we can't figure out.
They're scared of what they don't understand. So while they're not going to put that out because they might be showing the public something that might be far more significant than they realize, and they're kind of giving away the secrets, maybe.
Right, right. So
Mm,
just keep that in mind, because a lot of what the site talks about, or the Wingmakers site website talks about, is tied to our own abilities, activating our own frequency and abilities. I can go in a little bit more detail to that if we ever get to that. But I just want to mention that they call something the LERM, or light encoded reality matrix. So a lot of people talk about that, and how that's basically how we create things, and how we manifest what we want, right? And so when this ties to our grandfather and the fact that he talked about particleization, and I think in some way he knew about this technology and had access to it, that it's about turning your thoughts, your frequency, to mass, like void to mass, particleizing or manifesting what you want, basically having that ability. And all
Yeah.
humans have that. I think humans are very unique because they can do that, and a lot of races are aware of that, and that's why they're almost fearful of us, and that's why they
Our grandfather's talking.
yeah.
Yeah, our pineal gland is unique to humans, as he put it. A lot of the other species do not have that ability, have that pineal gland. Yeah.
oh, wow. So I had never heard that actually.
Yeah, yeah.
So
So
are you guys familiar with the Transylvanian Sunrise book series?
yes, yes.
So do you think there's a tie between that Dr. Anderson and the Dr. Anderson with the Wingmakers?
I think it's very likely. I think there's got to be a tie with what that whole series is about, and the inner Earth, and those other bases around the world. And yeah, I believe there's definitely a tie to that. Yeah.
So yeah, and for the people who don't know, it's the in Romania, in the Busegi Mountains, apparently in the mountains there was a Sphinx discovered, a whole cave site. It's very similar to the Wingmaker story, the ancient arrow site. And there's this guy involved named Dr. Anderson who claims to be part of a time travel research group, and there's all these ties to time travel and this Dr. Anderson, and we can get into that if we want, but I just don't think it's a coincidence. I don't know and if they are really time traveling and interdimensionally traveling, there's no doubt in my mind that they could easily be one and the same. And this brings me to my next question. You guys are familiar with that there is more than one Wingmaker site. How many are there? Apparently seven.
So they,
7.
yeah, they
Mhm.
said there's 7 of them, and if you look at the newer site, it actually has the locations. I believe you can see what the locations are, at least the cities they call them out. So I assume they've been discovered. That I haven't seen any other information on it. Um, but interesting that one Carrie Cassidy interview that you guys shared recently, Ashiana Dean,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Ashanti.
ours. So she brings that up a couple times. I actually finally got through the whole thing, but she calls them ancient arrow sites, and she says there's actually 24 of them around the world, and they tie into a lot of what she's talking about with the different gateways and pathways and openings that exist on the planet, and the way that we can, what we used to be able to transcend through these different portals and reach the higher levels. But the ancient arrow sites were a big part of that. She said there's 24 of them. So I don't know if she knows those locations or they've been identified, but I think she probably does. She had like maps of all that stuff. So
Right. And I wonder why they decided to name it the Ancient Arrow Site. Like what prompted that nickname, right? And if there really are 24 of them, and Ashiana Dean, other people are tapping into that name in particular. I don't know if it's just a random name they threw at it for a project name. You know what I'm saying? Do you happen to have on hand the other locations of the Wingmaker sites? I think I have the text that you sent me, Derek. I can look that up if you don't have it on hand.
I don't have it in front of me, but I think it's on that. Let me scroll through 1 second. Actually, here it is. Yeah, it's right here.
Okay.
Ancient arrow sites, New Mexico near Chaco Canyon. But it's basically every continent. Antarctica was one near Lake Vostok. They have names for them, actually. Pilon in Antarctica, Mawu, North Central Africa in the vicinity of Lake Chad, Jumala, north of Helsinki, Finland, Adhya, I don't know, South Central Australia, and Zianya, Southern China near Canton, and then Hakomi near Cusco, Peru, South America.
Yeah, it's interesting. And they have all allegedly been discovered at this point. That's how obviously they know where they are.
Yeah, well, and also there's the document, Dan, if you want to briefly mention this, because we found a document, our grandfather had this in his collection, and I just found it last summer going through the material. I was like, oh, this is interesting. It has a prediction for 2023. So like, this is cool information. So we did a whole episode on that, but it basically said by 2023, all those sites would have been discovered, and we would be at the point that we're ready, this culmination of, what's happening right now. And it kind of like the prediction was like there'll be like the nodal points along the whole Earth grid or whatever, be like almost like the internet itself coming together to like we'll be more tapped into interstellar communications and whatever means, whether it's telepathic, but also through the internet itself and how we're able to communicate so fast with each other. I think all of this is also a warning, as we said about the paintings, and the ties to AI becoming like we are developing so quick, and humans have so much access to information, but basically AI is kind of and the technology is what we're using to do that. And if we're not tapping into our own identity and who we are, where we came from, that becomes very dangerous, right?
Connecting to our own spirit and our spirituality, then you become out of balance, and that's where problems start happening when you develop too far technologically but not spiritually, and then that's when usually civilizations destroy themselves, right? So it's like right now we see like it's almost like a split happening where you see a lot of humanity going that route, but you see a lot of humanity also waking up and growing spiritually and along with technologically, so it's gonna be interesting to see how this plays out in our lifetime.
And that's what the letter that we found from it was basically saying that the Wingmakers mission is being culture bearers on our planet and to kind of drive us into understanding that we are all one, we are all the singularity that is the first source. And the prediction was that the internet would by 2023 would be the focal point to facilitate us to have this further cultural understanding, so that we can all understand this alignment, that even still appreciating all of our individuality and diversity that we have and respecting that, but recognizing the higher truth. And once we are able to collectively get to a point of awareness on this planet, then we can that knowledge actually like opens the gate for us to connect galactically with other species as a collective, not just a secret organization by some secret organization.
So what was the date of this letter?
That was in 98 or 90.
Yeah.
Your grandfather's
that came up.
Your grandfather's letter?
It's the one he had from the website. Like it was on the original website if you go way back, and he put the first page in his book, and I was like, okay, that's cool, but I didn't realize he had the whole 10 pages or however many of the actual memo that had the prediction in it. And I was like, wow, okay. I didn't realize that was sitting there.
So he had it in his possession, and you've read the actual 10-page memo.
Yeah. Now you can find it on the site, but I guess it wasn't apparent to me that he had it this whole time, and that was like a key piece of the information that he was trying to share at the time, right?
So in 1998, this memo said that by 2023, all the sites were discovered, and according to what's available now on the internet, they have been discovered. And this whole AI takeover thing, that's all within the Wingmakers material itself, but it all seems to be happening. It's like this culmination point, right? And we're at this precipice, and who knows what's going to happen. And
I think that it might be kind of emphasize this point, Derek, if you wanted to go over that like human 1.0, human 2.0, and 3.0 that they talked about, and like the different paths that we could potentially, it's part of the Wingmaker philosophy of what they talk about of how evolve, and it's either that transhumanism AI or it's the other side, or it's like more spirit in ourselves.
I'll quickly go through that. And it's interesting this is the first thing that I have. I put some slides together about this actually a while back, and when we did our episode, but it states in those interviews or in the material that, the earth itself is a very special place. And it's like almost the Anunnaki knew that when they created us, it's so dense basically, and the gravity and everything here. That's why we still are tied to the third dimension in so many ways. We don't have access, or many people don't have access to those higher dimensions, but we realize that's our ultimate goal. And that's kind of, if we get information one way or another, whether it's part of our own, coming from us with internally or a higher self or some other advanced beings, but it's coming from like obviously higher density, right? It seems to be. And so the Anunnaki put us in this kind of this prison planet. I mean, we've heard that term before, but more or less that's what it is. And it's like the human mind system that was created when they created us, that kept us into this, creating our own illusion of reality, of what we call reality, physical reality at least, and what's beyond it. So the human 1.0 in the what do you call it? The genesis of creation of how we became, according to the Wingmakers material, is like human 1.0, and Dr. Naruto was talking about this. The 1.0 is the lower intelligence where we could not reproduce. We are more like cloned bodies. We're slave workers. The Anunnaki story, I'm not going to go into that, but it's about them trying to mine gold and use, instead of having to mine it themselves, create a human race, a slave race that could do it for them, blah, blah, blah. So that was how we were created, more or less, genetically engineered from the primates and the natural mammals and whatnot, apes that were here, but also using higher evolved beings like themselves and maybe other genetic material to create humans. Human 2.0 then became, later on, they were like, okay, and it depends on the factions who you want to believe did this, and, Enki versus Enlil. But 2.0 was to create a more highly evolved version of humans that could then obviously reproduce, but they then built this belief system into them also. Like, we became more conscious and aware of ourselves and our surroundings. This upgrade included the program that Anu was God and will one day return. So all of these mythologies about, God or whatever religion you want to buy into, not that it's bad, but it's just it's dumbing down the reality of everything, I guess, in a sense. And spirituality, there's something we want to go to and say, like, I want to know, there's some truth to this, but it's distorted always, and that's the law of one material also says that, the mind body spirit complex, it's a distortion of the sort of first source or first of creation of what we're trying to get back to. So we're trying to get back there, but that 2.0 and the way that Anunnaki kind of influenced us kept us in this kind of mindset. So human 3.0 is where we're trying to evolve now. It's the infinite human of the earth plane to be able to evolve to the next evolution. And these scenarios could play out with human 3.0. It can either be, it's the split between the AI transhumanism form, where you're based on frailty, weakness, disease, etc., or it's the human 3.0 sovereign integral version. And sovereign integral is a term that should be known within Wingmakers. It's the whole volumes about that, but it's for the Wingmakers assisting us to have immortality through spiritual developments. The I am, or the we are of existence, that knowing that we're first source, that we have direct connection to first source. We don't have to go through anything to get there. More or less, we find our way to get there ourselves if we do it.
Yeah, there doesn't need to be a middleman, like a church, or you don't need a middleman to reach enlightenment.
Right.
And the Wingmakers talk about that two paths of, spiritual mastery. One through religion is looking for this savior complex to, that needs to be here to complete us, to allow us to evolve. And the other one is, going within, more like a Eastern traditions kind of thing.
Right. Yeah, and that programming that you were talking about, Jack Doubleday calls it the thought control matrix. Like it's literally like, yeah, we're programmed with these belief systems and all this stuff. It's in our DNA. It's in our genetic makeup intentionally.
Mhm.
Yeah, they talk a lot about that. They call it the human suppression system, and there are a lot of different parts and pieces to it, and it's like almost like a programmable thing that they can insert, uploads into, like, and this is what Anu and the Anunnaki created when they did this. But it's all designed to keep us from evolving, basically, so that we can maintain down here as, and that time it was for slave purposes, but
Right.
that was to maintain control, always be able to maintain that control.
Just to expound upon all of this, like, it's funny, it brings me back to the prediction, the material, the memo that I found. Like, it Neruda, or whoever was writing that, explained, he talks about apps. Like, he totally talks about apps, as we know them, but like software programs, like in the back of our minds, there's these software programs running, like, and we don't realize it, but it's been ingrained in us. And like, sometimes they're just waiting to be activated based on other material information and whatever, or the time just to be right for us to awaken to those programs, to allow those to then spark our spiritual development or whatnot. But like, there's all these other apps that are probably, they had their purpose, served their purpose for us to evolve, but now they must have known that even using the terminology within the site and how they explain things, they would be targeted by what? By AI looking at, okay, is this information does it need to be censored? Does it need to be stopped from the public knowing about it? So that might be a reason why some terminology is used. They talk about, the elites and stuff, but they try to make up words like the incunabula instead of like Illuminati, like things like that, or the triad of power. And so you'll see a lot of terms used, but talking about more or less the same thing, and ways of controlling
Right.
us.
Were you going to add something, Daniel?
Well, I was going to go into more of the suppression framework, just a high level review of what they call the different things and how it works, and a little bit on the Anunnaki background and how it all came to be. If you guys wanted to go down that.
Yeah. For anyone who wants to learn more about the Wingmakers, before we move on to this deeper topic, Wingmakers, what is the exact website that you recommend? I know you said it at the beginning, but let's just say it again.
The wingmakers.us will show you what the website looked like as it was in 1998 when it was first created.
Okay. And then there's the wingmakers.com, which is the newer version. And then there's also the andersoninstitute.com. I don't know if you are familiar with that, but there's tons and tons of information about the Wingmakers on there too. You can look up that website as well. Yeah, but let's go into the suppression and everything that I guess is ultimately still part of the Wingmakers material. But
yeah, this is like their mythology. This is kind of their creation story and everything. I'm just going to read this one little summary just to kind of, it's pretty interesting how they describe it. But some of the things they talk about, one term is called the sovereign integral, and basically that's the term used to describe our higher selves as part of first source, and taking on our individuality, and it encompasses our soul, spirit, body, like all of us. And I think that's the main thing I need to define before I do. So it says, as first beings, the sovereigns created a mind, a vessel in which separation could occur. So they're talking about the creation of the universe, and the first source decided to create sovereigns to have this diversity amongst itself, kind of similar creation stories that you may have heard before. But the sovereigns created a mind, a vessel in which separation could occur, and from that moment, individuality was born. Over billions upon billions of years, the sovereigns of the mind created the universe as we know it. They created the dimensions of the higher mind, and this mind creation gradually manifested creations of a lower mind. It was within the vibratory field of the lower mind that the sovereigns began to lose their memory of their existence as first beings. They would look at the words of creation and wonder who created this universe, who was behind this magnificent and magical world. And yet it never occurred to the sovereigns that it was they who created the universe, and whose very reflection is nature itself. And so the sovereigns began to create God, or a concept of a supreme being, as one behind creation. God was creator of all in nature. Throughout the multiverse, the sovereigns became diminished of power, and their sense of responsibility to nature was also reduced. The concept of God, separate from us, was thus born. As sovereigns divided into races of interdimensional beings, they developed a near infinite diversity of creations, and only the tiniest fractions of which is known to humanity through symbols and fragments of stories that have most been, blessed off its mythology. Then Anu's forefathers appeared, Anu from the Anunnaki, and with them the creation of the human instrument began. This was, though it was crude when compared to modern day humans, the human instrument of this era was nonetheless brilliantly conceived. When Anu began to create the next evolution of the human instrument, he realized how sovereigns were forgetful of their origins and had co-signed creation up to a supreme being. The sovereigns that had become the interdimensional beings known as the Atlanteans were the perfect choice to power the human instruments that Anu was creating, for the Atlanteans, despite their spiritual prowess, were inexperienced with deception. And this might, I might add, is a theme worth noting. The spiritually focused are often more easily manipulated because of their innate sense of trust. So this was before, like, the Atlanteans embodied the human bodies. They were interdimensional beings, and the Anunnaki came and basically tricked them into becoming human. So the Atlanteans, through trickery of Anu, were seduced into inhabiting the human instrument, and the sovereigns became humans. However, not every Atlantean was captured and subjected to the process of human enslavement. There were some who predicted the outcome of the human project that Anu was executing, and they fled within a dimensional pocket upon Earth, deep within what is now called the Atlantic Ocean. It was these Atlanteans that became known in mythological terms as Elohim, or Shining Ones, and these are the same as we know today as the Wingmakers. These beings have been watching the human family since its initial footsteps on a densifying planet called Earth millions of years ago. They have been the benevolent resource to humanity because they are human in every sense, except they do not have the human mind system, which is part of the suppression structure. Those programs and systems were the human instrument that distracted and diverted the sovereigns within the human instrument from realizing they are present. The Waymakers are not guides, angels, ascended masters, or gods that exist within the dimensions of the human mind system. They live within the interdimensional fields of the higher mind, and likewise, elders to the human family, they provide the paradigms of sovereign integral and the grand portal, which is how we remember the sovereign integral and go back to our first point of existence. Focus exclusively on these two paradigms because from these come the first point that enables the individual to dissolve the programs that conceal the one equal and truthful from itself. So that's basically the overall.
I mean, that says it all right there. That's deep. But it's very similar to information like the Law of One, or even Katie and the chorus, and the wing. It's all. I think we're finally at a point in humanity, in our civilization here on Earth, where this information is going to be more and more prevalent. We're going to all start to realize this stuff, and obviously it's going to start with small groups of people and conversations like this before the collective catches on. But I do think that we're at that point now.
Yeah. And they talk part of their suppression system. They have like all these different components. I mean, it goes into a lot of detail, and there's a lot of acronyms and things like that about it.
Yeah, the hologram of deception, all the layers behind that, and yeah, the God spirit soul complex and all those things.
Yeah, I mean, these are all the different programs or apps, as they say, that was when the human instrument, as they call it, was created, and that includes not just our physical body, but our spirit as we know it, our soul, because they have there's like a matrix within a matrix. So we live in this 3D matrix that's our physical body and everything, but and then we think when we die, we escape the matrix and we go on to the next thing. But they say that even like the ascended masters and the people who are in the next realm beyond, that is still an illusionary matrix that they're living in, and they don't even see the full, the next level of the entirety of their sovereign integral selves. They're not even aware of it to connect to that first point. So, the Wingmakers are apparently outside of both of those realms, though, and that's kind of what this says, how they've been kind of helping us and guiding us, trying to get us to these realizations. So their definition of ascension isn't really like an ascension. It's more like a realization or remembering who we are.
Right. And this would make a lot of sense if Naruto or Dr. Anderson was having communication with the Wingmakers, why, if he was understanding these concepts, why he would want to defect if he knew that they were going to hold on to this information, right? And that's what I'm just reading right here on the Anderson Institute website. It says in early 1997, the ACIO scientist who had originally discovered the access code for the optical disc became strangely sympathetic with the Wingmakers mission. He was convinced that the ACIO would never share the discovery with the public, and he was certain that it was too significant to withhold. He also claimed that he was in communication with the Wingmakers and that they were watching the ACIO's progress and would, at the appropriate time, make the time capsule and its contents available to the public. It's just all, it makes perfect sense to me. Like, this is stuff, obviously, they know is going to break us free, right? If it gets out. So, I understand why they want to keep it a secret, but not anymore. You know, like John Warner the Fourth said in an interview, he said they're good at keeping secrets, but not that good because we're talking about it. So,
Well, they can only do it for so long and so much. There's only so much they can do. When we start waking up, that's when it's game over. You know, we're the key to our own consciousness. Like, they can only keep control if we stay asleep, if we stay at that very low level of consciousness. So that's why they're terrified of us waking up, and they do every single thing possible they can to try to keep us there. But it's inevitably happening anyway. We see it; it's happening, you know, and nothing can stop what's coming. In the words of a certain thing. So, right, there's only so much they can do, and I think they're just trying to delay it at this point, because they know it's like what Bill Wood said, like, two chess players, they both know it's game over. The one that's already lost, he knows he's already lost. All he can do is try to delay as much as possible. So it's not if, it's just when we're going to start really seeing the big grand, you know, things start happening, in my opinion.
Yeah, and I was kind of hoping well, it's interesting we're having this right before the eclipse, because I think this month is going to be so crucial as to how these cards are going to be played and how this card's going to be played, right?
Right.
So we'll see.
It's going to be interesting. We'll see what happens.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, we'll know by the time this airs, we'll know what happened. So,
but let's use our intent because we're a part of this co-creation, right? So if we stay out of fear and stay into what we actually want to create and put our energy, that's what's going to start manifesting more, right? So
right.
That's the key.
So
exactly.
Is there any other areas of this that we didn't cover that you want to cover, or before we start wrapping this up?
Yeah, Dan. There was the whole thing about the 6 heart virtues, and this is just a whole nother, like, kind of like a philosophy and more into the, like, a practical uses of this information. And even the quantum pause, and Dan, I know you know about that too, is like the breathing, like our intention, just like we were talking about, our intention and our breathing, and having appreciation and gratitude, all these things, these are all like parts of the philosophy of the website. So there is a lot of useful information here. The 6 heart virtues, I'll just say that the 6 of them that you can keep in mind are appreciation, compassion, forgiveness, humility, understanding, and then valor. And so it's a whole document and paper about how you use those. But like any event in your life, a relationship, a problem, a goal or inspiration, you just take into account how do you take these 6 heart virtues or use them in any particular situation, either mentally, spiritually, physically. Like, it's just a kind of it's not one size fits all or one way to do any of it. It's just how can you apply those in your life? How can you take time to kind of meditate or focus your intention on what you want? How to react or use those types of characteristics in your life at any given time. Take a step back and look at that and how you can better yourself, improve yourself, spiritually, obviously. That will then hopefully give you better connection to, in the end, first source, to creator, to what you want to manifest and achieve in your life. So that's that in a nutshell.
Beautifully said. Yeah.
Yeah. Yes. Well said.
They go in depth because they want to not just paint this picture of gloom and doom, but like how can we do something about this? So they talk about, like Derek said, the breath work, this what they call the quantum pause, and then focusing on these aspects in your life and putting it into action and not just knowing it, but actually doing it.
Right.
Yeah, absolutely.
So let's talk about briefly, what are you guys going to be sharing at our conference, or what your presentation is going to be about? And we'll start wrapping it up. And it looks like Derek's voting again. So you can start, Daniel.
Okay. So we intend to go through, start with a background on our grandfather, go through the highlights of his book, a lot of the subjects that he touched on, and then we want to talk about what we're really excited about is some new information that we've found out from various different sources that we haven't really shared yet with anyone else. So some different remote viewings and other insiders that have come forward to us about some information. So it's going to be pretty cool for us to share that with everybody.
Yeah, I can't wait to hear it
Yeah,
all, and I
awesome.
can't wait to see it all presented. And yeah, and for those who don't know, you guys are going to be presenting on Thursday, the final day of the event. And because I know everyone can't make it for the whole time. So if you wanted a day pass, to get a day pass and come out and meet Derek and Daniel. And I think, do you guys plan on having copies of the book at the event?
I think we will. We haven't talked about that, but I think we'll have a couple dozen maybe we'll have available for if people are interested in picking it up.
Yeah,
Right
Aaron's
here.
holding it up right now. Aaron always
Look right here.
plays Price is Right model for me.
I'm the Price is Right model.
Yeah.
Nice.
There you go.
Yeah. Hey, you got it there too.
That'll be good. But no, like Dan said, like there's so much new information that we're just now coming across. I mean, the fact that we even got to, are talking to Peter the Insider and Jessica, and I recently got to meet Jessica in person. Actually, it was kind of amazing, just random coincidence. But all these synchronicities happening, I have so far. I know Tyler, you're working with me to hopefully get some RV related information that we want to share. I think even Tony Rodriguez is going to help us with that with his group. He's doing a whole RV group talks with Tony. If you don't follow him, you should follow him on Patreon too. And then I've already gotten pretty amazing information through a pretty well-known source that I don't really want to disclose yet without their permission. But they apparently got direct contact with our grandfather, and he shared quite a bit and could confirm a few things. So we'll have that to talk about.
Yeah, that'll be a great presentation. I'm super looking forward to that. Yeah.
Yeah,
Right.
definitely.
And yeah, so thank you guys so much for joining us today. This has been a blast. And I mean, we barely scraped the surface of this information. Like I said, I'll put all three of the websites, the wingmakers.us, the wingmakers.com, and the Anderson Institute websites in the description. And you guys can, the audience can go down do their own deep dive. Because what is super, super annoying about the Wingmakers and the ACIO, if you try and Google this stuff, if you Google the ACIO, good luck. Like they just don't have, you need the links to the websites. Even the Wingmakers, it's not easy. That stuff is buried. And I even went to other like Brave browser and stuff. It's just not that accessible. It's there, but you just have to know where to look, right?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, there's so much references that we've said in this whole interview that I think it's such valuable information. Definitely check out the people we've talked about and referenced, and there's so much more. There's so many more too. So,
right. And just for people who don't know, Jessica that you're referring to is Jessica Morocco. She has a YouTube channel. I don't know. What is the name of the YouTube channel? Do you know off the top of your hand?
Done talks.
What is it?
Andrana Talks or Andrana E Talks, something like that.
Okay,
yeah.
we'll put that in the description as well. But that's where her and Peter the Insider, they do a show together and they share a lot of cool information. So yeah. Anyway, we look forward to seeing you guys. Well, we look forward to meeting you two at the conference. We've met before at an event, but look forward to seeing you again at the conference, and we can't wait to see all the new faces and familiar faces at the event in Grafton. We're looking forward to it, and you can find all the information for that at rebelsofdisclosure.com. And really quick, Aaron and I are going to be, what was the date we decided on for the webinar, Aaron?
April 28th.
April 28th is going to be our Illuminati in the music industry webinar, and it's going to be awesome. You know, it's going to be another lengthy one, but we're really excited about it, and it's coming together better than I thought. And we were working on it hard yesterday. But yeah, April 28th. Stay tuned for that. And if you want to be there live for that and be able to participate, you can join our Patreon for only $5 a month, and that link is below in the description. And it's on our website, journeytotruth.online, where you can find everything about us, including signing up for our new monthly newsletter. So take advantage of that. And can you guys please let our audience know how they can find you guys?
Yeah, you can find a lot of our content on infinite.tv. That's infynit.tv. And then on YouTube, our channel is called Clear Thought, CLR Thought.
Nice. And we'll have those links below as well. Thank you guys for being here. This has been great. And
thank
like
you
I
guys so
said,
much.
we can't wait to hang out with you guys here in a month. So we'll see you at the event. And thank you guys all for tuning in. We love you all. And until next time, have a great evening. Good night.
Another turning point, a fork stuck in the road. Time grabs you by the wrist, directs you where to go. So make the best of this test and don't ask why. It's not a question but a lesson learned in time. It's something unpredictable, but in the end is right. I hope you had the time of your life. So take the photographs and still frames in your mind, hanging on a shelf in good health and good time. Tattoos and memories and dead skin on trial. For what it's worth, it was worth all the while. It's something unpredictable, but in the end is right. I hope you had the time of your life. It's something unpredictable, but in the end it's right. I hope you had the time of your life. It's something unpredictable, but in the end is right. I hope you had the time.
Actually, I was quoting Sherry.
That's the last time Brad will ever quote me.
Hey guys, we hope you can join us this year at the Rebels of Disclosure Conference in Grafton, Illinois at the Pure Marquette Lodge and Conference Center, May 13th through the 16th. As you can see, we have tons of fun. We made some great memories, and we just wanted to take this opportunity to extend the invite to all of you who've never been. It's so much fun, and it's so important to connect with Soul Family, and we just really look forward to seeing everyone out there.
Yeah, I hope to see you all there. It's a blast. It's really something that you have to experience to know how amazing it is, and it's so much more than just the speakers. It's an amazing time, and it's amazing to connect with Soul Family. So we hope to see you all there.
And all that information is below at rebelsofdisclosure.com. So grab a ticket and join us. We hope to see you there.